Good morning, race fans. It's Monday. We just had the Dover weekend with, the Cup All-Star race, and what can I say? I think a lot of us are kind of seeing people say conflicted, confused because the truck race was actually pretty solid. Saw Kyle freaking Busch win, and yes, I call him Kyle freaking Busch because he's Kyle freaking Busch and the dude can drive. He was absolutely dominant in the truck race. And then we saw a really interesting Oreilly race where Corey Day came and won his second race. Really impressive win for that young man. Uh, Allgaier looked like he was the guy to beat, and Corey Day complete. This is his first time racing at Dover. He's only been on, hard surfaces for a little over a year, maybe 2 years now. And what can I say? Corey Day continues to impress me. As he said in his post-race interview, Allgaier wasn't using all the track, so he just kept inching up a little further and a little further. And he was just doing a great job. So I was really impressed. I've been impressed with Corey Day. His car control is unbelievable. And one of the things that I've noted as he was a little sloppy in the early part of the year was mainly that he didn't quite know exactly where the corners of his car were. So he ended up having some run ins with some other cars. But as he's got more seat time and more laps, we're not seeing any of those little mistakes anymore. So, what can I say? Corey Day continues to impress. I think there was a lot of chatter over the past week about maybe he's going to go into the 48 car. My gut reaction is he probably could do it, but why not keep him in the Oreilly series for another year? Give him a whole another year of asphalt or hard surface, racing. And give Alex Bowman a 1 year deal. But who knows? They may just go, you know what? Let's follow the Carson Hocevar, Ty Gibbs, Connor Zilic route and get them the reps in the cup car earlier, have him learn that car earlier. So we may see Corey Day in that 48. We'll see. I like Alex Bowman. I'd like to see him keep his ride. I know his sponsor Ally loves him. He's just a good dude, and he's doing really well. And we'll see. He had a pretty solid finish at Dover in the All Star race. But what can I say? I do think Corey Day is one of those drivers. You might be like, you know what? Let's take a gamble. Let's get him into the seat early, and Bowman may lose his ride. I hope he doesn't. I think the better strategy for Hendrick Motorsports would be to kind of give Corey Day another year of seat time in the Oreilly series, maybe get him a championship, and then put him into the 48. But hey, I'm not on the committee. That's just my 2 cents. But let's keep going because I want to talk about Dover. And Dover is one of those tracks that it's like, especially with the way they set it up for this weekend with the grip compound in both ends all the way up the track. I think it really opened up the track and made it really compelling, interesting racing. But I think the problem for a lot of people was this weird all-star format. And it was almost a full-size normal race. It was almost stage racing, but and they kept saying this on the broadcast was basically you had three races wholly separate, and only the last race, the last 200 laps was the all-star race. And as we saw as it opened, we saw Ryan Preece. I'm a big fan of Ryan Preece. It looks like he came down on the nose of, was it Zane Smith, which then pushed him into Kyle Larson. So you kind of had this sandwich effect, which as Ryan Preece came down, it pushed the nose of Smith down into the side of Kyle Larson, which caused Kyle Larson to basically turn up the track and hit Preece. So it was just a chain reaction. I don't know if the spotter missed something or the spotter thought he was clear, or if Ryan Preece just thought he had a couple more feet there because everybody would have been diving down into the corner. But He went into the wall really hard, really hard, really like that was a fast rear end into the wall hit. Um, Lots of fire. It was a bad wreck. Took 9 cars out of the race, or at least temporarily out of the race. A lot of the cars were able to go behind the wall, go into the garage, fix things, and then come back and attempt to race the All Star race. But in the future, instead of having sort of a first race and then invert the field, have a second race, and you're doing this sort of weird finish thing, what if the first race was just the cars who hadn't made it yet? Uh, and so you have, let's say, you keep the top 16, like it's almost like the chase cars or your all-star cars, whoever's going to be in that all-star, the guaranteed spots. Let's say those don't race the first race. And we have just the cars that are trying to get those open spots. And then you take like the top 10 or so from that first race and make it shorter. Make it like 50 laps. Make it 35 laps. Make it shorter. Make it a sprint. And then, you take the top 10 from that, and then you put all the cars into the second heat, and you do a short race just for position. Basically, it's like a qualifying race. Whoever wins the qualifying race gets to be on the pole, and then you just do it, behind that. Something like that. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ideas that would have made it a lot more compelling, and we wouldn't have lost so many cars that were supposed to be in the final race early in the day. And so I think if you did, yeah, as I said, the first race is the non all-star cars trying to get the open spots. The second race can be like, let's see where we fall for qualifying, something like that. Maybe you put them on the grid to start based on where they're sitting in standing, something like that. I don't know. You can figure out something, and then you do another short 35 to 50 lap race for position, and then you have a shorter 100, 125, maybe 150 lap race. We don't need to do a full size race for the all-star race. It needs to be a little bit more fun, a little bit more, a different, or maybe in the second race you seed them based on how their pit crews did in the pit crew qualifying challenge. Maybe there you go. That's what you do. You do the first race as the ones who are trying to make it into the challenge. Then the second race is you're put in the grid. You're based on how your pit crew does on the pit crew challenge. Then you race for position, and then you use where you finish in that second race for, where you start in the third race. I think that could be compelling, but we don't want to do, I mean, I think your typical Dover race is about 400 laps, and they did about 350 laps. So it was barely short of a full Dover race, and it didn't really feel like an all-star race. It needs to feel like this is sort of fun. There's no weight to it. It's just us having fun, fan appreciation. Maybe more to do with the teams and stuff. I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ideas. But I do think it would show better under the lights. Maybe you can have the pit crew challenge in the afternoon, like spread it out a little bit, things like that. But there has to be something different than just this looks like stage racing with a few extra complications. Um, Overall, I thought the quality of the racing when they were actually doing the long runs was actually pretty good. It became a bit of a wreck fest, but the wrecks kind of came in spurts. Like there were a bunch of them right after each other, and then it would get into green flag racing for a little while. And I think at the end we had a really nice long green flag run with Chase Briscoe and Denny Hamlin battling it out. And what can I say? I'm a fan of both of those drivers, but I'm really pulling for Denny Hamlin to get his championship. So I like the momentum that this gives Denny, but I also think for Chase, it gives him momentum that he really needs in order to make it into the actual chase format at the end of the year. So I don't know. I really enjoyed seeing some of the other drivers you don't normally see running toward the front. We saw Eric Jones. We saw Connor Zilish. We saw Alex Bowman. But let's get into it a little bit, and let's you know what? Where do we want to start? Where do we want to start? Let us start. Yeah, we'll start with the actual results. So Denny Hamlin and Chase Briscoe came back 1-2. Eric Jones in third. This is the one that I love. I love seeing RCR doing well. So Austin Dillon getting fourth place is huge. And we saw Kyle Busch running in the top 10 all day long. And he looked fast, but he got a pit lane speeding violation, and that kind of ruined his day. But so did Connor Zilish. Connor Zilish had a pit lane interference because his tire rolled and it barely. I mean, this was a weak freaking call. Barely made Gregson's guy, rear tire guy, kind of have to change his route a little bit, and it was minor. This was pretty ticky tack in my opinion, but overall, love seeing Austin Dillon having a good day. But it shows that RCR does have speed now. And we've been seeing them pick up for the last couple weeks. And so I want to see this continue. I hope this trend continues because I always want to see the number 3 car doing well, no matter who's driving it, because I'm a huge Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan. Now, Connor Zilish, I want to say this also shows Connor Zilish is legit because he had that penalty I just mentioned, and he had to drive all the way back through the field to finish 5th. And so, yes, there were a bunch of cars that were no longer on the track, and it was a little thinner pack he had to weave through. But overall, Connor Zilish looked fast, and he finished 5th, and he probably would have finished better if he didn't have that penalty. So overall, really impressed with Connor's efforts, and what can I say? He started 5th and finished 5th. Austin Dillon started 11th, so he qualified decently and finished 4th. Austin Cindric qualified 6th, finished 6th. I like to see Austin Cindric doing well, but it's kind of sucks for his teammates. Joey Logano had some issues, had a crash, and Ryan Blaney got caught up in somebody else's wreck early. It was the Priest wreck, I believe, and so his day was cut short. And he didn't have the car after it came back on field after basically having the whole front end rebuilt. It just wasn't there. So nice to see William Byron having a decent day. Big fan of Michael McDowell. I like that he had a good day. And he qualified 9th, finished 8th. And then here we are with Alex Bowman, qualified 10th, finished 9th. Overall, thought he showed a really strong day. Same thing, Brad Keselowski had a better day than a 10th place finish indicates, because he got involved in some wrecks, got spun out a little bit. And it's just one of those things where, I think he was frankly lucky just to finish the race because of how many incidents he was involved in. Same thing, Noah Gragson, pretty solid day for him, top 15 finish. I guess he started 14th, finished 11th. Allmendinger started 20th, finished 12th, and then here's Blaney. Had an issue in qualifying, and then finished 13th. And then Carson Hocevar had a weird tire issue, and then he was flipping the stage, and he was about to be right in that perfect spot to, good strategy on Hocevar's part. But the caution came out literally after he finished pitting, and you heard him come on the radio and just like, well, there goes our plan, basically. And what can I say? Overall, not a great day for Hocevar, but not a bad day. I think it was just let's put it this way, good practice. Same thing, Ty Dillon, top 15 finish. Congrats to him. Really well done. Especially it's Colleague Racing, and they have no Chevrolet support, so they're kind of doing their everything on their own. Congrats to Ricky Stenhouse, nicely done. Qualified 16th, finished 16th. And here's Kyle Busch, qualified 23rd. I think he had an issue in qualifying, so he was toward the back of the pack. But he was running way better than a 17th place finish indicates. And this is, again, a strong indication for how RCR seems to be on the upswing right now, because everybody's commenting about how good Kyle Busch was running until, you know, wrecks and things kind of got in his way, pit lane speeding issue, things like that. So, what can I say? Overall, it was a interesting race. It had moments of really good racing. It had moments of absolute garbage racing and became a wreck fest. And so this was a really difficult one to put a grade to. Excuse me. So let's see what we're doing. All right. I gave this a 69, so like 1 point below the baseline average, which is 70. So sevens across the board is where I kind of put my baseline average. And did I enjoy it? I could have put this at 7.5 and felt comfortable, but I wanted to be like, yeah, the format was odd enough and it wasn't conducive to an all-star race. It felt more like a real race and not an all-star race. So the lack of points is kind of aggravating, and I think that is weighing on a lot of people. But overall, the Wreck Fest, the weird performance, weird format. I kind of enjoyed qualifying with the actual pit crews having to do that. I think that's a really neat thing to do on the All-Star weekend. I would like to see that continue. I like the fact that the pit crew won money. I think that's a really cool idea for especially this type of weekend, because it really shows that it is a team effort. And you know, the fact that Denny Hamlin was able to spin out as he's entering the track and still win the pole is thoroughly impressive. But was it Smith, number 38? Zane Smith, I believe his pit crew was the fastest. So they got the win there, and yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Um, but it I don't know how to grade this race because we had some tire issues, and it wasn't tire fall off, it was cording, and so I did take a half point for weird tire issues. Um, I do think that the higher speed, the 750 horsepower with the low drag package is great on this track. I'd like to see it again. I think that putting the grip compound on the ends is really helping widen the track out. So I think this could make a really compelling points race if you prep the track the same way and then ran it like a normal race instead of this funky format we had for the All-Star weekend. And so I took half a point for tire and half a point for the passing was just not as good as it could have been. So, but overall, I liked the more lanes. I thought it was really interesting. I could easily put this at a 7, and I have no problem with that. So you know what? Let's change it on the fly. We're going to put this at a 70. So it is about as neutral your baseline as possible. The trade-offs were we had some really good long green flag racing, but we had some tire issues. So those two trade off to balance it out at sevens across the board effectively. So and then in Oreilly, I really enjoyed the battle between Corey Day and Allgaier at the end, so I put it at an 8. Race quality at a 7.5. Strategy at a 7.5. Tire was neutral, no real issues there, no real benefits there. It didn't seem like there was a ton of fall off, so it was just sort of like it is what it is. And then I thought they had decent passing, so that gets a 75. And then the truck race, I gave him a 75 as well, for 8 on enjoyment, 8 on racing quality, 7 on strategy, 7 on tire, and 7.5 on passing. So I didn't think there was a ton of strategy. It was mostly just the Kyle Busch show, and it was Kyle Busch doing Kyle Busch things, leading and dominating and just being Kyle freaking Busch. And yes, I always pretty much always refer to Kyle Busch as Kyle freaking Busch because he's Kyle freaking Busch. The dude can drive, and it is one of those things that it's more surprising to me when he has poor finishes than when he has good finishes, because he is, as I mentioned many times, a first ballot Hall of Famer for trucks, Oreilly, Cup. The dude is an absolute legend, and he's still racing. So I think you're looking at like Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch is like first ballot. Both of them are in, both, no question. So what can I say? I really enjoyed the truck race, um, because it was just a dominant performance, and was really a nice fun race. So I like, sometimes a dominant performance is one of those things you want to see. And what can I say? Overall, I do think this was a fun race weekend. I thought Trucks was good. I thought Oreilly was good. I thought the Cup All Star race was just odd, and it had flashes of great racing and flashes of complete garbage. And it's one of those, like, they keep referring to Dover as a self-clearing track. Um, but overall, what can I say? I thought it was, there's potential in the format. They just gotta fix it. Um, and I think my tweaks of have the first race be the open cars racing for positions in the qualifying race. Then you have the qualifying race based on how the pit crews did. And then you have a shorter 125 lap race for the All Star. I think that would be compelling. Maybe you want to do something like, I just watched the last two rounds, the round of 12 and the round of 6 qualifying for the Indy 500 this coming weekend. And I thought that was really compelling. So maybe for qualifying you do something interesting like that. You do combine, do a overall qualifying run for everybody, and then you take the top 12 and do another qualifying run, and do the top 6 and do another qualifying run. That could be really interesting. But maybe that's something we reserve just for things like, maybe the Daytona race under the lights, you do an interesting qualifying like that. I don't want to change the Daytona 500 at all. I think the Daytona 500 um, needs to actually go back to the whole speed week format. I like the two races leading up to the 500. I like that setup, but I think we could have a longer lead up, maybe do more in that week down in Daytona. Maybe return, instead of having the Bowman Gray exhibition race the week before Daytona, maybe we go back to Florida. Maybe you do something else somewhere else in Florida. Maybe you do the short track at Daytona, something else. I don't know. But I think the snow race that we had at Bowman Gray isn't going to work. So why don't we do something and bring back the old school speed week stuff that we used to do? And then we still have the two America 250 races leading up to the Daytona 500. But I don't know. I'm rambling here, but I don't know. Let me know what you think. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going.